So Christian, today we're going to talk about famous playmakers and number 10s who've inspired you. So when you were growing up, who did you look up to? Who were the kind of number 10s that inspired you?
Who did I look up to? I think when I was younger, I played a lot of Football Manager. So I looked up to Totti, Francesco Totti. Not so much of his style of play, just more like he was just a nice Roma player. So I liked Roma at the time and followed that. And then later on, I looked up to Michael Laudrup, but obviously he's the biggest Danish one we have. Yeah. But he was before my time, so there was more YouTube clips and see what he did there. And then later on, I would say when I played a bit myself and looking, it was a bit like Iniesta, looking up to in terms of his flow with the ball, moving around and finding his space.
What was it about Michael that you liked when you were watching those YouTube clips? What kind of stood out to you?
No, I think more or less that he's Danish. More or less that he's Danish, but also just like his flow. Like you just see where the space were and just move the ball to the right place, move it to the right side to be able to pass or dribble at the right time. And that's something that's difficult to learn and it's tough.
And considering he played for like Real Madrid and Barcelona, do you think he's quite underrated outside of Denmark, especially now, like looking back? Do you think people underappreciate how good he was at the time?
Probably. I don't think they underappreciate him in Spain. I think he was obviously there, had the biggest name. I do think the rest of the world, maybe. Denmark definitely not, obviously, but no, I do think they see him a bit underrated compared to everyone else, yeah.
And his brother wasn't too bad either, was he? I think he had a slightly different position, but he was a good player as well.
No, definitely. He was one of the two brothers who won the Euros for Denmark. So Michael obviously didn't, and Brian did. But also his career was special, a bit up and down, obviously. But in terms of what he did as a player for Denmark, was top.
And the number 10 position is like revered across the world, South America, Europe. Is it the same in Denmark? Is that a player in that position, do they get looked upon as the creative hub of the team?
Yeah, no, same. Number 10 has always been the creative player. It's always been like that, yeah, still is.
You wear number 14 obviously for United, but when you were growing up, did you always wear the number 10? Did you always imagine yourself playing on the pitch wearing number 10?
I think the role I had always been and have always been as a 10, more or less in any team I've been in. It doesn't really matter what number I've had on my back. I've always played as a number 10. Only 10 I've had is with national team. I had that for a few years, and then I know that's it. But in the end, it's more like the positions where you're on the pitch, and then you can be called a playmaker or 10 as same.
And at Ajax, do they see that position as special as well? Obviously, Johan Cruyff, Jari Littmann and Schneider growing up through that, like that helped you develop?
Yeah, no, they were obviously when I came to Ajax, there was you had Van der Vaart, you had Schneider, just before the 10s that people look up to, and Ajax really developed. And then after, I do think the 10s are moving away from football, like the pure 10s, because it's turning more into you're playing with 2 8s or an 8, and then the 10s is it's different style of play compared to what it was before.
I was going to ask about that. So how do you think it's changed while you've been playing as a footballer? How the demands of the position, is there more pressing involved, more defending involved?
Yeah, no, there is. I think before as a 10 you're probably a bit more the flow one, like you can just be extra one who gets the ball and then do something, and then now you can't, like you need 11 players to attack and 11 players to defend. So in terms of that, then yes, it has changed. The role for the 10 is a bit different.
And has it changed as well, because you've got like deeper lying playmakers? You've had people like Scholes and Pirlo, and you play a little bit deeper now, so how does that differ from playing as like a traditional number 10?
How does it? Yeah, again, it depends on the game. I mean, some games you can have the ball a lot as a 6 or as an 8, and sometimes you can even have a lot of space as a 10. But I think it's more that you are, as a 10 now, you're a lot more involved in the build-up than you were before. And obviously, if you're a deep-lying midfielder, you try to connect as soon as possible to get the game going. So I think that's the only difference. So you get the ball further away from the opponent's goal than if you were 10.
And in comparison to other sports, you've got like in NFL, you've got quarterbacks, in basketball, you've got point guards. So do you see similarities in yourself and like Tom Brady and players like that when you're a playmaker?
No, I think that's then you need to be further back. I think if that's then you play with a sweeper. I would say like Like I was back, I think, I always remember back in the day, like a Franz Beckenbauer, all the one they always told. I've never seen him play, but obviously he was a sweeper back in the day, and Morten Olsen in Denmark was at the time. That's more, I think, deep line, proper, old school playmaker. I think as a six today, obviously try to put a diagonal in or pass a ball wide, but I do think a lot of that also comes from a centre back.
You mentioned the players you looked up to growing up, but about players you've played with, playmakers you've played with, who have you taken the most from, who have you learned the most from?
Who I've taken the most from as playmakers? Yeah, it's different because I don't think there's been, where I've been, I haven't been that pure playmaker as a 10, as I see a playmaker. Obviously there's been a lot of deep play in midfielders, sixes I've played with. I don't know what I'd take. Played with a lot of good players, so I could name a lot of players, but I don't know who else would be. There's not one where I thought, oh, this is where I see my game like him. No, there hasn't been one. Yeah, no, there's been a lot of good ones.
Obviously, when you're a number 10 and playmaker, the onus is on creating. So does an assist give you almost as much joy as a goal, or would you rather score?
No, I'd rather score, but I do get a lot of enjoyment out of an assist. I do feel like it's, as a 10, it's a very important part of your job, being on the pitch. I think as a 10 you have to be involved and try to exactly create chances for teammates, and if not finish them off yourself, but definitely create for someone else. Yeah.
And the same with like corners and set pieces and free kicks as well. Is that the burden almost on you to create from those opportunities?
Yeah, part of it. Obviously it has to go in the goal afterwards, so it has to be a good ball and then after a good finish or a good header. But no, it's also part of it. I think that's less for just a kicker is different, or a free kick taker is different than compared to a playmaker.
Yeah. Just finally, to speak to young players now who are growing up wanting to play in your position, what advice would you give them?
What advice? My advice would be follow the flow of the game. So when you go into a game, look at how people move and where their space is. Because I do think the space and the time in football now is getting shorter and smaller. So I do think in that sense it's a thing that anyone at any time really find very important.